Hard. Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring. Learning how to make a virtual business boring. Showing up every morning, ready for the show. I'ma get ready. Cold engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
Happy Friday! That's right, we're hanging out here in the Ultra Lounge this Friday. What a week it's been. I actually survived a trip to LA. What I'm really excited to report is that I worked on a 250 person hybrid that executed successfully this week. It had a 120 person pod in LA, a 30 person pod in Germany, and over 100 people who called in from around the world. They had speakers in every one of those different locations, and that we actually made the experience correct. Where we're able to share videos, share speakers, and more importantly, really share the emotion of many people winning Founders Awards that were celebrating Founders Day for this company, celebrating the 4 founders who created their company. And that's a great hybrid success in this new world that's starting to emerge. Speaking of new worlds and that are waiting to emerge, this amazing person, I believe, hopefully I still got this right, at least when I originally worked with her, works for TKC Incorporated, but most importantly, she's a speaker, coach, and that she also loves jazz. Let's bring in the one and only Angela Heath.
Hey everybody, I do love jazz. That's nice. That's nice.
There we go. We got a little jazz cruising today. What's your favorite jazz performance? Do you have a favorite artist or?
I love piano.
Yeah.
And I love any kind of horn instrument, so I'm all over the place. I like the old, I like contemporary. Jazz is good for thinking. That's why I like it.
Jazz is good for thinking.
Very good for thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of thinking, right? You've been doing a lot of thinking leading up to this. I'm so glad that we met a while back and we get a chance to finally do fun interview like this. But for my friends who don't know you, Angela, of course, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Okay. Well, primarily I'm a speaker, trainer, and an author working on my 6th book, which you are going to be in. Yay. But I work with solopreneurs, self-employed people, helping them jump from corporate into the life that they dreamed of, and really helping them shine in the marketplace, get seen, heard, and noticed with virtual stages, live stages, as well as creating books that can earn them a ton of opportunity.
Wow. Well, do you mind sharing maybe one of your best success stories? You may not have to share in a name, but we'd love to hear like a story of somebody who didn't quite know exactly what they're doing to like now they got the life of their dreams.
Well, one person, and I don't want to share her name because I didn't ask, but that just happened not too long ago.
Yeah.
I just gave her the idea of how you can create a book with recordings. And she did this conference and she did all of these recordings and they were able to turn it into a book. And now her organization and the event, which has been primarily over in Europe, is going everywhere now. It's just becoming worldwide. But yeah, everybody can do it.
Everybody can do that, right? I love that you have that core belief around that. And of course, in the past 2 years, I'm sure you might have spoken a lot in person, but over the last 2 years that you spent a significant time online, what are some of the things that you discovered over the past 2 years that make virtual meetings engaging for you?
It's interesting because I was speaking virtually before the pandemic. And it happened because, the story, my son was diagnosed with cancer at 12, and so I couldn't travel. And I had to learn something about this world. So when the pandemic hit, one of the things that I learned is that I knew a lot more than most people. So in terms of what makes it exciting to me, I love some of the work that you do. I love anytime you can bring in, video games, third party apps, and things like that. Fun things that keep people perked up, ways that we can get people on deck, by just simple things like calling out their names so that if they are asleep, they perk up, if they're, yeah, if they're working on three things at one time, they hear their name, they will perk up and start to pay attention. But I like bringing fun into virtual meetings when it's appropriate.
I think Angela, we may have to make a new name for that because I just recently taught the same technique, right? And like, especially if you have the camera on, right, and they're kind of starting to tune off, and then you just use their name, right? And maybe it's kind of like it's like name lash, right? Like whiplash, but you use somebody's name. Like as soon as like Angela spaces out, and I say, "But Angela, what about this?" Well, you'll see her come back here going, "What's going on?"
Right,
No.
right. And I've been using some interesting kind of PowerPoints,
Yeah.
and again, only when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
In some of the presentations where they actually are games, where people are competing for a prize that sometimes is never going to happen, but they're competing for a prize, and that sort of brings them back into.
All right. What are some of your favorite games that you've used?
Well, I just did one
Yeah.
for the virtual elevating virtual events competition where I actually won
Oh,
first
that's right.
prize.
Wait a minute. That's right. That's why you're
I
here too. You told me
won
we just
first
saw this on
prize.
social media that you won a prize. Congratulations. Yeah, tell us more.
Well, that was a conference run by a group of volunteers from around the world. And the purpose of it was to bring all of these expert speakers on who could tell us how do we elevate the value of virtual today. And part of what we were doing is having a competition so that all of these things that we've been learning, we can, put into practice. And it was a little short webinar competition, 7 minutes, and had been narrowed down to 5 presenters, and I came in first place.
There's your wow for today. Oh, wait. I have applause here somewhere here. But I'm a little slow today on applause. How about this? So yeah, tell me a little bit more about what did you do? I mean, 7 minutes is not a lot of time, and what I've told speakers too, I hope you believe the same thing, right? Speaking for 7 minutes is almost harder than speaking for 60 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
It is, yeah, it is really very hard because you have to come up with a real speech that can be delivered so shortly. And then you've got to build some engagement into that speech also. It makes it pretty interesting, but luckily I was able to do it. And I really believe that it was my PowerPoint. I really believe that my PowerPoint did a lot.
Okay, so this is great because I've got a lot of friends and I've been hanging around the Presentation Guild, and I'm going to give my shout out to Rick Altman, who really got me into this. He runs something called the Presentation Summit, which I'm going to be the virtual MC for the second year of this hybrid conference. Can you give me one or two concepts that really think that you made your slide deck stand out?
Well, considering again, this was just a very short presentation,
Sure.
I made it into a game. So there was a game where it had questions on it, and the piece actually moved around the game. So it just kept people's attention. It was something that some people hadn't seen, didn't know you could do with PowerPoint. So it's just using like some of the morph and transitions and things like that that made it kind of fun.
There we go. So there's your great idea, right? um, yeah, tell me like maybe one of the morph transitions you use. Because by the way, for those who don't know, and I didn't actually been using this a lot until recently is that Morph can tell you to do one thing in one position, and then on another place you put it over here. Microsoft PowerPoint will do all the transitions from it. Angela, I actually recently made a video where I had 160 individual photographs that morphed from out of the picture into three chessboards.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
great. Yeah, that's the most I've ever done with Morph. What's an example of something that you used in Morph during this program?
If you let me show it, I'll
Oh
show
yeah,
you.
shares on if you got your
And
slide up.
okay, let me show you just a little bit of it. The title of the game was Live to Be 100. Can you see that?
There we go. I see it. Happy and healthy. Yeah.
Okay. And so here you go. This was the first question.
Aw.
And so it just does that all the way around as I'm asking questions,
Okay.
and they just loved it. So, yeah, you can do so much with these tools right on PowerPoint. I didn't
Yeah.
spend any money or anything like that, doing anything really super fancy, but just that movement, the bright colors, I
Yeah.
think. And then, of course, when I was presenting, I was matching with the colors.
Yeah, you mean you were like the same colors? Oh, come on.
I didn't have all of the clown colors, but I had on a color that would match with my board. Yeah.
No, that is an important point though, Angela. Like, when you see professional speakers, you'll see them do something like have a brand color or something like that, right? I think all of us as speakers too, even on virtual now, I try and represent. So,
Yeah.
I'll put on a shirt or suit depending upon the audience that I have and go back to that because people started getting used to like sweatshirts and other, sweatpants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it makes you stand out. What's your belief on like taking that extra effort or like matching colors? Do you do that for a particular reason for you?
I do. I usually do my brand colors, which is like a purple and a tan and this kind of muted red. I usually do my brand colors on presentations that I do for my own company. But if I'm doing something for someone else's company and I try to match up with their brand colors, and again, it always depends on the audience, but if it's someplace where it's appropriate, then you can even use their logo as part of your backdrop, um, depending on what you're doing. You can't do that all the time.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, right? Your background's talking for you, whether you're saying anything or not, and I think it's an important aspect, right? Known as good looks around the neighborhoods that we're in. Um, what's some of the so now I'm sure you have attended lots of virtual stuff too. What is one of the best virtual either speakers or techniques that you've seen in the past year?
I love this one award program I attended. It was a woman who was doing some work with African nations, and they had this elaborate award program with like ambassadors and all this fun stuff. And I loved how they did it. They actually, everybody had the same exact background. So it made it look very attractive. And when the people were coming up to get their awards, they had the video rolling where it was the red carpet and the flashing lights of the cameras, and then the person appears, their name appears, and the person appears. So it was timed so well. It looked like something that you were watching on television. It was really good.
That's fantastic because we are looking to make an award show. By the way, Angela, so watch for it. In about 2 weeks, I think we're going to unveil the nominations for the EVAs, the Engaging Virtual Meeting Awards.
Okay.
We would love to, of course, have your entry in here um, and look at those techniques. So that we're trying right now to say, what we need to do in an award show. It's kind of funny. The universal comments about an award show is like, don't drag it on, hurry up,
Right.
kind of get on with it, right? And I would love to hear. I think virtual meetings are starting to move that way, which is like 2020. Okay, we were all clunky because it was like we just got on stage for the first time. But 2022, I think the expectations are starting to rise, and like I don't know, have you seen that? And I don't, are you doing things on your own side to raise your own expectations for your attendees?
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely, there's so many tools. Just since this pandemic, there have been so many pieces of software that have come out. And some of these are just blowing up like, psh, like right away. So yeah, I think that, you know, when you think about television, how often, how many seconds is it that they're switching? I mean, it's just a few seconds, like what, every 4 seconds or something. So I think that the expectation of people who have been television watchers is that now we have to elevate even to something that's going to compete. And I think that movement, you know, the video, the change, and all of that is what really does it for some people. And, you know, the colors, the bright colors and things like that. But yeah, I think, you know, again, it depends on the event that you're doing.
Yeah.
But I love that one piece when you are standing there and you're actually looking up at the person on the screen. I've tried to do that with software. I know it works better with hardware. I haven't quite got that the way I want it yet, but I'm working on something like that because I love that. I love that. It looks like, you know, you're actually looking at them.
Okay, let's see if I can do it here. Hold on a second, and then I can describe how we do it. Let's see if okay, so now you should be able to see me, but one of the things is by controlling my camera. In this case, let's go through some, you know, Angela talked about tools, which is great about this. One of the best tools I'm using right now is called OBS, or Open Broadcast Software. It's free. That's the most amazing part of it. This is allows you to have what I call a television studio in your house. Now, what I have here is to show just a little behind the scenes of my setup is that my video is down here, and now I've pinned Angela up here. And so this can only be done when Zoom is in what's called dual screen mode. And I used to not like this mode, but now I'm starting to use this mode more and more because now I can take my video and her video and mix them together. Oh, wait. Over like this. There we go. I got it right. Right. So now I can do this, right? And now I can, even when I'm turned like this, I actually have a monitor up here in this area. So I can actually still, it looks like I'm looking at her, but really I'm also looking at her video. So I can still notice things that she's shaking her head. Yes. Right. And these are all things I think you need to think about in this setup. So Angela, to do this, again, those were the couple things that you need. Number one is Zoom in dual screen mode. Mm-hmm. Right. Then OBS. And then basically in OBS, you create a scene. Right. What I tell people all the time, like OBS is, if you know how to do PowerPoint, then you can do OBS. Because what you're doing is you're bringing in.
Okay, now, John, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that.
Oh, no. Okay, say
OBS
more.
is a lot more complicated than PowerPoint, but you see, you're an expert at it, so it seems very easy to you. I tried OBS about 3 years ago or something. It just got so many plugins and so complicated. I went to something easier. Some people are using Ecamm, Minicam. Yep. It can't do everything that you can do in OBS, but it can give you more than most people have. Hate to disagree with you on your show, but you're an expert, so you think OBS is easy.
Well, I didn't say it was easy. What I did say, just so we're clear, right? If you understand the basics of PowerPoint, then you can get through the basics of there. And, you know, like any tool, Angela, right? You need to have a kind of a good first experience, because after that, you can build on top of it. Like, you don't learn all of PowerPoint. Like, it's actually, I've been using PowerPoint for 30 years, and I still don't know everything it does. But if you can, what PowerPoint got right, I love what Rick loves to say, most people can learn PowerPoint in about 5 to 10 minutes. So they just make one slide, and then after that you can start building on it. Anyways, so to go like using pseudo PowerPoint metaphor here is that there are 3 things that are on the screen here. So one is this background video of clouds, so I'm filling up the rest of the space. Mm-hmm. The second one here is Angela's video, which is all I'm doing is taking something that's on that screen that was above mine and then putting it up here. and then my video here. And the way to get this is because I'm on a green screen, right?
Right.
Everything else is transparent, so everyone else will see through. So now I can do all these little tricks where it looks like, I'm kind of poking Angela, but really all I'm doing is my screen is transparent. So that's one of the ways to do this. And Angela, I'll give you that, which is like, in the reverse challenge, that I believe that if we work together a little bit, that I can help you do this kind of scene.
It sounds like it's very simple, but I would have to do it on not OBS.
That's fine. All right, now check this out, Angela. Have you heard about Microsoft's Cameo?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to watch for this. Now,
Okay.
Cameo, and it's not out yet, but
Okay.
I've gotten wind of it, and I've seen the articles. If you go Cameo,
Mhm.
I think it's PowerPoint Cameo or Microsoft Cameo. It allows you on the PowerPoint slide to drag and position your video like an element, like anything else on a PowerPoint slide.
Oh,
So if you
cool.
want to put yourself big on a PowerPoint slide, small, right, in a circle, like all these other different variations. And I think that was something that's really important for PowerPoint. They saw other competitors like, um, oh shoot, what's the other one that a lot of people use that you could move around inside of the slide deck? Anyways, there's multiple other programs that started to do things like this, and that I think PowerPoint came back and says we need to have an answer to make it even easier, and that's their answer. So watch for that. That's a good watch for that. All right, let me see. I'm gonna put us back together here. So hold on a second. I have to bring me here. And now I'm going to bring Angela back here. So Angela, the other thing I want to go back to, like in production, which is,
Mhm.
I like what you said about that. I have timed new movies cut on average every 2 to 4 seconds. So what I
Yeah.
mean by two, because like count 1,000, 1,002, you see something else,
Hmm.
and you'll see that pace, and that pace is actually increased. Or I'm sorry, that pace is the pace has increased. The times have gotten shorter over the years. If you go back and you watch some older movies, like you love jazz, okay, so like pick a movie from the 50s or 60s, and you'll see these 1 and 2 and 3 minute cuts. Like they didn't cut because it was a
Yeah.
lot harder to do, right? And that pace has now moved into like basically things are cutting like every few seconds. And I
Yeah, short attention spans, those, not and I don't know what's driving what. I don't know if cinema is driving the short attention span or is it the short attention span that's driving cinema, but everybody has short attention spans these days.
Okay, that's a good point. What are 1 or 2 things that you do for short attention span? Like when you're designing a program, right? Like you have a talk coming up. What are some of those things that you're thinking about that help you structure a great talk?
Well, I used to rely heavily on my PowerPoint, not to read bullets or anything. I haven't done bullets in years, but to make it engaging and beautiful and blah, blah, blah. But now what I've been doing a lot of is keep coming back full screen. So I try to mix it up with me versus whatever else I'm doing. If it's a video or PowerPoint or whatever else it is, I keep coming back because especially if I'm doing like work in Zoom, in meetings, not webinar. But if I'm in meetings, then when you keep coming back, that's jarring and it also captures people's attention. I really get frustrated when I go to trainings and people are stuck up in the little box in Zoom and they stay there. They stay there the whole presentation.
Yeah.
It's just, it's it begins to get a little bit boring. You lose people's attention. So just that little thing of coming back and then going over to your PowerPoint is enough to jar people. And you really do. You have to jar them. So I also use music. I'll pull some music in at different times, especially if we're doing breakouts and things like that. I'll have people dance out of the main room into the breakout room. And then when they come back in, we might do a dance. Again, it depends on the audience. Everybody, you can't do that for, but of course, if it's mine, I can do whatever I want to do.
Well, I love that. And that's, by the way, what you can't see here in Zoom, but I actually have I've discovered that in Zoom, while you're running a live stream from Zoom to like some other place, you can actually switch views. If you switch from speaker view to the gallery, then
Yeah.
what you can do is actually control the camera. So like by the way, so those who are on live stream, you're seeing that I have the ability to spotlight Angela when she's talking. And so this is a great technique. I discovered this too. Like coming off of slides is, I think, too, an important part to come back and reconnect to your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like I take down slides where this part now is not about content. This is now I want to hear something from you, maybe, or maybe you interact with some people. All right. Or I just want to talk to you. Right. And you give that
Right.
totally different feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And I like, even in Zoom, I like using my PowerPoint as a backdrop,
Yay.
even something simple like that in Zoom, and you can play with that. You can have part of your presentation as just a backdrop, and then you can stop that and then actually present a real PowerPoint. You know, just different views, because you can't, like, you're using OBS, so you actually can you just do a whole bunch of different scenes, and some of the software you can do that too. But if people don't have like OBS and software, you can do it just here in Zoom with just regular everyday PowerPoint.
And that's an important key point because, like, okay, so yes, I'm doing some fancy stuff, but the equivalent of what I'm doing right here, right, by the ability to go through some of these slides and things like this and change your background this quickly while still maintaining this presence. I mean, this is, Angela, I totally agree with you that this part is right because as a speaker, we forgot about these things, and then you can start to do stuff like this, which is you're interacting with something that isn't there. Right. And so now you can come around and do these types of things. And the one is that tool is available to every single person who owns Zoom. Right.
Right.
And number two, I can tell you this is what I tell people when I teach them about it. I believe right now, if you hurry up, that it will put you in the top 1% of all presenters because
Mhm.
I watch easily over 100 presentations, right, in the past couple months. And I'm lucky if one has actually used PowerPoint as a virtual background.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the only thing about PowerPoint is your virtual background. You got to remember everything is reversed.
Yeah.
So when you're
Oh,
pointing to something, it's opposite land.
yeah. By the way, yeah, in my video, this is the wrong hand. And so it's taken me a lot of practice to be able to do this. Like this whole slide deck, I actually can do things like I know I don't other you spend half of your time reversing yourself, getting it right. But after rehearsal, you're like, this is Walking Dead, this is Patrick Lencioni. Right? And so you
Right.
can you actually remember, you'll physically have to remember some of these things. And what we call weather person, right? You got to learn some of these weather
Yes.
person things about it. So. Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
hilarious, Angela. All right, well, let me go into this. What is so now that you're here, right, and you're already experimenting with some of I think the newest and coolest and features. And I love that you reference so many tools around there. What do you see as the future of virtual meetings?
You know what I really think, I think there's going to be layers. I think for the corporations who have big budgets, I think the future is going to be holograms. Is
Mm.
they've got hologram software now that is fabulous. I did a virtual speakers summit right a few months after the pandemic started, and I brought some of the best presenters, I think, in the world together. And the whole discussion about holograms and the ability to really make it look like you're sitting next to a hologram
Hmm.
and it looks like you're both actually there. So if you're doing something where you're streaming it out, the people in your audience, they're seeing it like, wow, the president of the company is here, and then he's also everywhere else at the same time. So I think for big budget events, I think that's going to be one of the things. I think these virtual stadiums, are going to grow. There are a number of um, organization speakers, like, Tony Robbins level of a speaker, who have actually built out their virtual stadium. And I think you're going to find more of that. Yeah, you're going to find more of that with some of the larger presenters. I mean, folks that charge, 50,000 plus
Yeah.
for their presentations. I think you're going to see more of that because those are really cool. People seem to love them a lot. Right. So that's another thing I see. I also see where for remote worker engagement, there's going to be a lot more fun coming into virtual. I'm really curious about what you think about hybrid, because hybrid, definitely can work, but it's more expensive than an either or, because you got to pay for two different events. It's
Yeah.
more expensive.
Yeah. I have one of my good friends who spoke here last year at my conference last year, Jan Keck, really kind of gave a pretty controversial statement because he felt like it
Mhm.
was, quote unquote, the worst of both worlds.
And I can understand why he said that. I can.
Sure, sure.
I don't, it doesn't have to be the worst, but if it's not done well, and if your speakers
Yeah.
don't know how to balance the two, somebody's gonna feel ignored, either the audience, in-house, or the people virtual. They're gonna feel ignored. So that's a skill that I think speakers are gonna have to develop.
So the good news is too, I just spoke to a group of CEOs local around here in Seattle area, and their number one piece though is around day-to-day hybrid, meaning that they have a collection of remote and in-person workers or
Yeah.
remote or in-person clients. And that hybrid, I think, is a key factor of them being successful in business. So learning how to do hybrid. I'm actually on the opinion too. I don't think I'm on this other side. Although I did admit that Jan's statement made me think for a long time.
Yeah.
Going, maybe it is. Now I got to think about it. But my personal experience is when you do it right, it's amazing. And so, for instance, I have things like tools like, have you seen an owl yet? Have you seen the owl?
I have. I
Yeah.
have.
So for those who don't know, it actually looks like an owl. It's a vertical device, has a 360-degree camera and a 360-degree mic. That means that you can stick it inside of like a room with like a circular or, whatever table, like a boardroom table, and you could sit wherever it wants. And in the Zoom room, it will actually control the video automatically. So if it hears me talking, it will say, I need to show this portion of the 360-degree camera. It's John speaking. And it can do that for up to 3 people simultaneously. So it's a really cool way to do hybrid production without anybody knowing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the important part. And I got a chance to use that in 2 of my events. I don't know if I'm 100% fan yet, but I did get to use it a year ago, and it's just cool to see things like that. But getting back to that, I believe that until the world fully opens up, you're gonna have to deal with hybrid, whether you like it or not. That's one. So number 2 is what can you do to make it great? And so again, I did produce this program I talked about here, 250 person program, and the challenge is because every portion of the audience, someone in person in LA, someone in person in Germany, and someone who called in only virtually needed to speak and be understood by everybody in all 3 of those audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenge. It took a lot of planning, but when you did it right, everybody said it was actually the best Founders Day. That's the name of the event that they've had in 5 years.
Okay, so let me speak about the owl and other tools like that.
Sure.
I have been on the receiving end. One of the advisory boards that I sit on, we used it for an advisory meeting. I think there were probably just as many advisors remote as were in the room. And it does not pick up the audio as well as maybe you expect it to. So there were people on the far end of the room.
Yep.
Their audio was very, very soft. And we kept saying, can you speak louder? Those remote. So you got to make sure that, I think, is probably the main thing, because the video piece, it works fine.
Oh, cool.
It's the audio. The other thing is, I think there's a real difference between a corporate meeting, whether it's clients or internal, being hybrid, versus I'm thinking of professional speakers doing a hybrid. So I think in the corporate world, it's never going away, because it already was there before the pandemic. You already had video events and things like that, and people in the art, you already had it. We
Yep.
may not have been really talking about it as hybrid, but it was already there. But I'm thinking of like professional speakers, Because I think that's where it kind of maybe doesn't work as well, because it's not an interview kind of format. It is an eyeball to eyeball, me talking to my audience, me talking to, the virtual audience. And I think that becomes more of an issue. But if you're interviewing me and I'm sitting back, in my director's chair or my big boardroom chair, I think that's different, because speakers who are going to be like offering things from the stage and all of that, there's a momentum that you got to keep up in order for that thing to be successful. So I think it's going to really kind of divide itself out between, what we do with like corporate clients versus what we do maybe even for our own events, if we've got things that we're going to be offering the audience.
Anything else that you'd like to add, like in the future, or maybe on this side here, Angela, what's on your wish list?
Oh, my wish list. As you can tell, I'm like a kid on Christmas. I already thought about my list. I am really hoping to become a hologram at some point.
Wait a second. Have you looked at Amazon's Prime series called Upload?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm going to just tell you, watch that and then continue on.
Because most of the places that I've looked at it, they're pretty expensive because you need a lot of support around it. So I'm hoping that one day soon, I will have the financial resources to become a hologram, so that I can be in multiple countries at the same time and everybody think that I'm really there. The other thing is I want to build out an actual studio, and I want to work with educators, course creators, speakers, to rent out the space so that they too can elevate their game. So that's hopefully, I'm thinking 2023, I'll actually have a studio.
Well, love the studio. I mean, I've been developing my studio over 2 years, and it's just, I got to tell you, too, it's not an overnight success. A studio, to me, the only thing I feel like, is fail faster than anybody else, right? In terms of what works and what doesn't. And it's fun now, too. I have gotten the opportunity to help a couple other speakers develop their studios. So, we get a really chance to redesign. And I love working and seeing what their requirements are, which are very different than mine. And like, how can we do that? How can we make it better for them? And more importantly, how can we, it goes back to the other last piece here, Angela, which is how can we have an impact on each other? That's the one cool thing I've really seen over the past 2 years, is people realize how much of an impact that we can have just even over a virtual or video-based meeting that we thought only could be done in person. With that, Angela, if somebody wants to find you, where should they go look?
They should probably connect with me on LinkedIn. We can provide that information to them. But just remember, I am the real Angela Heath.
That is, and by the way, yes, it's posted on all the videos inside of here as her LinkedIn profile, which is the Angela Heath. Thank you so much, Angela. We appreciate you and your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Excellent. All right. Let's see. Oh, hold on a second. I was like, where's that? I need me here. Oh, I'm clicking buttons on my side. Okay, here we go. Hey, this is John Chen. This is one of our Engaging Virtual Meetings interview series with the amazing Angela Heath. We want to make sure we want to meet you too. What I love doing is introducing other members in our community who are doing really cool things with virtual meetings. Again, inside that click there, all you have to do is click interview and book a 1 hour, and I will come and interview you here and find out what you're doing in virtual meetings. So I'm going to take us out first with a little cool jazz as Angela has discovered the power of music. And now I'm going to close it down with this video. Hey everyone, thank you so much. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Drawing star people